Okay, welcome to the US Reduces June meeting. My name is Anne-Marie Bonneau. I started Silicon Valley Reduces, and I write a blog, The Zero Waste Chef. And I'm just going to mention a little something to get us started. So I went to a plastic-free July webinar last month, and it's a great time to start thinking about doing something for Plastic-Free July. And in the webinar, the woman who founded Plastic-Free July, Rebecca Prince-Rui, she said that they had a behavioral scientist. I'm not sure if they had them, if they hired them, but anyway, they talked about a study about what is more likely to be normalized as we try to rid the world of plastic. And surprisingly, it wasn't bulk shopping. It was switching to reusable bottles, avoiding packaged produce, avoiding plastic food wrap, and avoiding to-go coffee cups, which aligns really well with what we're doing with BYO stuff. And she also said it's not about saying no, but about choosing to reuse. So it's about a positive rather than a negative. So that's all I wanted to say. It's a good time to start thinking about Plastic-Free July. And now Yayoi is going to make some meeting announcements. So I'll hand it over to you, Yayoi.
Yes. Was it? I think it's the next is agenda overview, actually.
I can cover that very quickly. Amy, if you don't mind putting the agenda up, I'll just walk us through that very quickly.
Sorry.
No. Thanks for that introduction, Anne-Marie, and it is encouraging to hear about the coffee cups. So this is our agenda for this evening. It's packed, but it's our highlight for the evening is that we have, of course, Edward Humes talking about his book, Total Garbage, which I am halfway through and very excited about. In terms of what we'll go through, Yayoi is going to make some announcements momentarily. I will give I'm the founder of DC Reduces, and I will give a quick update, but mostly talk about the fact that we had our first Starbucks joining coming up in a second. And then we will have our guest speaker, Q&A, and then we never have enough time for the breakout groups, but we are trying very hard to preserve at least 20 minutes. I hope you'll stick around for that. That's where we can really, in smaller groups, talk about the challenges, the tips, what's working well, and what we could do a little bit better. And then we will wrap up by 8:30. I thank you everyone for sharing where you're from and the name of your Reduces group. I'll just say that on behalf of the core members, so we have Yayoi and Marie, of course, Jill, who I don't know if she's with us this evening, Amy, who is helping us a lot this evening on a lot of the technical issues in the breakout groups, and Alex, who I don't know again. But if you're one of the core members, just raise your hand so people can kind of see who you are. And thank you everyone else, whether you have a group or you don't yet have a group. We're really excited that you're with us because there's a lot to do, and it's always better to do it in community. So with that, I will turn it over to Yayoi for some announcements.
Thank you so much. If you could move to the next slide, please. So I'm a scatterbrain, so I really love to have this list. Okay, so greetings everyone. It's very nice to meet you. It's so exciting to have so many people come here today. And I want to say that our next meeting is going to be August 6th, 2024. So please register. We will put the link in the chat. And we have and the next item is that we have a new group in Brooklyn, New York. So congratulations, and we want to celebrate that. And I also want to remind people, for those who are new, why BYO and what it is that we do. This is a national support network for BYO, bring your own enthusiasts. We ask businesses to place stickers in front of their storefront, at their storefront, to indicate people that they are welcome to bring their vessels for drinks and take out leftovers, etc. Depending on where you are residing, there are different regulations. It is truly a feel-good community initiative. So we want to encourage people who are new to these meetings to start a program in their own location and join the network and continue to spread the good news for waste reduction to really save the world. It's our waste is at the core of our problem, as Ed is going to discuss up in his book he's going to talk about today, Total Garbage. So please consider starting a group. After his talk and Q&A, we will have a breakout social. And the purpose of the breakout social is to get to know people in different locations, like-minded individuals who are into reducing waste. And and it is for support for each of us. Each group will have one person to lead and share the tips and experiences about their endeavor, promoting Bring Your Own. So you can ask, if you're new, you can ask questions, and you can share your experiences, joy and struggle, both of them, in the group in a small setting. So we want to foster friendship and good faith in the community. Okay. And so also, I would like to encourage you to stay over for breakout social, for conversations after the speaker presentations. Even if you're new, we will be very nice and we welcome new friends. So join and meet like-minded people. And consider starting a program today. Please check our Get Started guide on our website. I will drop it in the chat after a little while. And yes, and one more thing, if I could give my own plug, please. I'm located, we are located, my group, Zero Waste Ithaca, also known as Ithaca Reduces, is located in central New York, where Cornell University is. And Cornell University is trying to put down several synthetic turfs, and which is basically a plastic grass. They're trying to cover the ground with plastic, and we are trying to stop it. We just passed the 450 signups on the petition. We would like you to join to sign up, because if we are worried about foodwares, single-use foodwares, we should be, worried about covering the living ground who do that so much services to us by sequestering carbons and keeping water, cleansing water, and doing all kinds of services with plastics that is disposable in 9 to 10 years, and they go to Nowhereville. They claim they recycle, but it's not really being recycled. And all these I believe that I'm probably preaching to the choir, but as you know, the chemical recycling is a sham scheme promoted by the industry. And so, yes, I really appreciate if you could sign the petition. And oh, thank you, Amy, for dropping it in the chat. And if you're interested, there is a webinar linked in the petition. We had 6 experts, and it was really well received. So please sign the petition. And thank you for giving me time to give this plug. And without further ado, I would like to pass it back on to Stephanie or Anne-Marie to introduce Ed. And oh, I'm sorry. First, Stephanie has a great news. We always do a little local news, local group news. We share a little local news, which is really good. So please, Stephanie, take it away. Please talk.
Okay, sure. No, I was asked to just say a bit about how we got Starbucks signed up. It's just one Starbucks, but I'll back up for a second. I started DC Reduces a couple of years ago. We have 6 volunteers. We have 65 businesses signed up with the sticker in the window. And, you know, unlike our Canadian predecessors, in Ronci Reduces and Anne-Marie's start in California, when we started this program in DC, we realized we were up against the DC health codes and we couldn't have the wonderful reusable takeout containers as a target. And so what we decided to do instead was to focus on a lot of other businesses where we could make a difference. And I'm happy to say out of the 65, I think we have a couple dozen coffee shops that have the sticker in the window and you know, are completely fine, of course, with customers bringing their own cups. So on January 3rd, I'm going to share this link. On January 3rd, if you don't know, you should know, Starbucks came out with an announcement that customers could bring across the US and Canada, participating Starbucks, customers could bring their own reusable cups. And I think all of us need to get the word out about that because a lot of people don't know it. But there were 2 factors that really allowed us to put the sticker in the Starbucks that we have in DC. One factor was that we approached them after January 3rd, this particular Starbucks in the Marriott Marquis by the Convention Center in DC. So we had that, we didn't have to argue with them. Some Starbucks pre-January 3rd were taking personal cups, some weren't. So this was not fantastic. And the second fluke that makes this perhaps not as replicable as I would like to believe is that I was doing a consulting gig with the Marriott Marquis Hotel. And so I already had a connection with one of the managers who in turn put me in touch with the restaurant hospitality manager for the Marriott in this region. And so it was really easy. It was one of the easiest sticker placements I've had in the last couple of years. We posted about it on our website. My personal next step for our group is to use the connection of that hospitality manager at the Marriott to connect with other Starbucks in other Marriotts in DC. And then I'm hoping that once we have enough Starbucks signed up, we can then take it outside that sort of Marriott Starbucks locale. So I'm happy to answer any really quick questions before we jump into the main book talk. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I will be happy to answer questions during the breakout sessions. And of course, offline, you're welcome to reach out and I can tell you. But that's basically what happened. That's how we got Starbucks in. Any quick questions? Okay, then I will go ahead and hand it off to Anne-Marie, who's going to introduce our guest.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, so we're really lucky tonight. We have Edward Humes. Ed is a journalist and author of 17 nonfiction books. His recent is Total Garbage, How We Can Fix Our Waste and Heal our World, which is wonderful. I loved it. Ed's previous works include the best-selling Mississippi Mud, The Forever Witness, How DNA and Genealogy Solved a Cold Case Double Murder, Garbology, Our Dirty Love Affair with Trash, and more. His work has appeared in The Atlantic, Wired, The New York Times, the LA Times, Los Angeles Magazine, Sierra, and other publications. And Ed won the Pulitzer for specialized reporting. He's also won a Penn Award, a bunch of other stuff. So thank you for joining us tonight, Ed. It's a real honor. And take it away.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. I should also say that Anne-Marie is actually in the book and sharing some of her zero waste tips in the kitchen and beyond. So, and of course, I know you all know about her wonderful book, The Zero Waste Chef, which is inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah. So I was really pleased to come here tonight. I thought I'd start with I promise, very brief overview of the book that's a little video. So how about I share that? Hopefully everybody will be able to see and hear it. And then we'll move on from there. All right, wish me luck.
What if our biggest environmental crises, from plastic pollution to climate change, are all symptoms of just one disease, and it's something we can actually fix?
Wait, it's not showing, is it? There we go. Let's start that again.
Biggest environmental crises, from plastic pollution to climate change, are all symptoms of just one disease, and it's something we can actually fix. That's right, the planet has an arch villain: waste. We live in the most wasteful civilization in history, and this goes way beyond what we roll to the curb each week. It's in what we eat and drink, how we cook. It's the main thing you pay for in your utility bills and at the gas pump. Waste is so deeply embedded in our daily lives that we see it as normal, if we see it at all. But here's the good news. Fixing our waste doesn't have to be about giving up stuff we love. It's about upgrading to stuff we're going to love more. And that shift in thinking can save the planet. My name is Edward Humes, and my new book is Total Garbage: How We Can Fix Our Waste and Heal Our World. It's the story of game changers and ordinary people right in our neighborhoods tackling waste and the environmental catastrophes it drives. Like the former financier turned urban farmer who turns wasteful grass lawns into fresh food from whole neighborhoods where it's needed most. There's the conservative farm town in Minnesota that partners with the local university to make wind and solar their cash crop. And you'll meet the Seattle dad, whose father and son weekend project is now a powerhouse social impact company that recycles and reuses your junk and plastics that would otherwise become landfill or pollution. And that's just a taste of the total garbage story.
All right, well, thanks for indulging me on that. So the concept of this book, and you may have heard from Anne-Marie's introduction that I wrote a previous book about trash called Garbology, and that really did focus on what we throw away and how little many people knew about how trashy we are. But for this book, I wanted to expand the view into wastefulness of other kinds as well. So I just wanted to give you the little overview that the book isn't solely on the topics we're going to be talking about tonight, which is what we throw away. But I wish I could tell you that the situation has improved since that first book, Garbology, came out 12 years ago, but as you may suspect, it has not gotten better. I want to share a little page from the book now with some data on it, which I think you'll find interesting. Um, okay, are we all seeing this? This is the most recent, shamefully, 2018 is the most recent iteration of our municipal waste data that the EPA has produced for public consumption. And it shows a total waste profile, including what is recycled as well as what's landfilled, of 292.4 million tons, which works out to 4.9 pounds of trash each and every day for every man, woman, and child in the country. But unfortunately, this data, as it has been for decades, is literally total garbage. It is completely wrong and underestimates our actual waste profile by 200 million tons, according to the most recent data I could find, which is from the Columbia University Earth Engineering Center, which actually measures or gathers the data from America's landfills that measure how much trash is being disposed of and where it lands. And that shows, let me stop that share. Instead of 4.9 pounds, I'll give you some other numbers. Find this graphic. Again, here we go. What we're actually generating is 8.2 pounds of waste a day for every man, woman, and child. 12 years ago, when I wrote Garbology, it was 7.2 pounds a day. So we were a pound heavier on our waste than we were just 12 years ago. That's per capita. And compare that to 1960, when 1/3 of our, we basically threw out about 1/3 of the amount that we are generating today, which is a phenomenal growth of a most unfortunate kind. We can all geek out later in the question and answer period if you want to know why the EPA is so wrong about this. But suffice it to say, even they admit that their data, which is based on modeling rather than real world measurement of waste, is flawed. And they even admit this. Buried in their publicly released reports is a separate figure for how much waste we each generate a day, which they use to calculate the greenhouse gas footprint of our waste, our solid waste, and that's 6.5 pounds a day. So even the EPA admits that their data is garbage, and yet we're basing our policies on this. Those incorrect figures are constantly reported in the media when our trashiness is decried, and we should be decrying much more. It's a little frustrating that it's hard for me to believe that this fraud is basically being perpetuated on us, because when you underestimate the amount of what's landfilled but don't underestimate what's being recycled, then we have a falsely high percentage of how much we're actually recycling. It's considerably lower than the figures that the EPA releases as well on our recycling rates. So, as you might guess, one of the most problematic pieces of our trash, something that really wasn't a significant part of our waste stream in the 1960s and up until the 1970s, is plastics. That is the single largest growth area of what we throw away, disposable plastics. And that is something that I want to spend a little time talking about. I'm going to release that screen and put up another little depressing chart. Sorry. Actually, my book isn't really a downer, but I seem to be focusing on all the negatives right now. It really is
it's not, yeah, it's not at all. It's so inspiring. I loved it.
We'll talk about the solutions that I spend the bulk of the book talking about. But if you want to solve something, first you have to recognize what the problem is. And also, I love this New Yorker cartoon that I'm about to show you. So, of course, it's not popping up. Just here we go. So the amount of plastics released into the environment globally is 400 million tons a year. The amount of that's the amount of plastic we actually recycle is 9%. That's globally. In the US, it's approximately 6% of our plastic waste is recycled here. And what we are now learning, and the science is growing all the time and growing more ominous, is that the plastic pollution, microfibers, and now nanofibers are everywhere and in everything. It turns out plastics are not unlike our skin. It's constantly shedding, and little bits of our cells are left behind, which is why DNA technology works so well for law enforcement. Plastics do the same thing, and anything it comes into contact with will have a transfer of plastics to them, which is why I'm sure Anne-Marie and the group has talked about this. You should not let your food touch plastic if it's at all possible, because you will then be consuming plastic. And the last report I saw is that if you drink bottled water in a plastic bottle, you will be consuming 100 times as much plastic with every bottle than you would if you drank a similar quantity of water from your spigot and put it in a glass instead of a plastic glass. So unfortunately, this country doesn't operate on the precautionary principle, which would require people who are filling our environment with plastic to prove that wasn't killing us. We actually have to prove it's killing us or making us sick in order for something to be done, which is why we now are living in the Plasticine era, or as the Patagonia company now calls it, the Shitocene area. They actually published a book with that name. When I wrote the manuscript for this book, I felt I was kind of pushing it when I said that we could be consuming up to 5 grams of plastic a week in America, which would be like pulling a credit card out of your wallet every week and chewing it up and swallowing it. That's about 5 grams. And now I consider that to be conservative estimate, that the amount of plastics we're consuming and even breathing in from plastic dust, from plastic in the water and air is never it never stops. And periodically you read about attempts to cleanse the ocean of plastics or to do other things to ameliorate, create some genetically engineered Frankenstein organism that's going to eat our plastic waste. And none of those solutions are going to work. The only solution is to stop adding to the quantity of plastic in the environment, which is, of course, what this group is focused on. And I want to talk about now 3 solutions that I write about in the book, different points in the chain, to try and keep our plastic waste out of our environment and out of our bodies. It's really depressing where we're finding plastic. Surgeons are finding plastic in people's hearts. They're finding it in the plaque lining our veins. It's even showing up in newborn babies' poop. That's how ever-present plastic. A baby that has not consumed any nourishment outside of the womb has plastic in their systems. I don't know about you, that just horrifies me. And I have to say that the inventors of plastic over a century ago, the first commercially successful plastic, I'm sure you've heard of it, Bakelite. It's had 1,001 uses. Was celebrated as its inventor Henry Bakeland was celebrated like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla and all the other great inventors of that era of invention in the early 20th century as someone who's changing the world. And he did. he didn't envision, nor did the early plastic engineers envision, making something disposable out of a product that was designed not to break down from environmental factors. It was designed to make durable synthetic things instead of using natural materials. And there were problems with it because it's primarily a fossil fuel product, so it did require extraction of materials, geologic materials, but no one was thinking disposable when they created this stuff. It was supposed to last. And the insanity of making disposable products, as we have done for the last 50 years in quantity and with uncontrolled and no concern about their fate, is sheer folly, and our generations will go down in history for the legacy that's going to be left behind for many generations. Wasn't the original plan, but now we're stuck with this literal sea of disposable plastics. What do we do about it? So you saw in the video a company called Ridwells. Has anyone heard of that? Because they're spreading across the country. It's most recently arrived in Los Angeles, and what they do is provide the missing link in what is essentially our failed waste management and recycling systems. All the materials that end up in the recycling bin that don't get recycled were thrown into landfill-bound trash because people don't know what to do with. All those plastics are being, if we're lucky, segregated in landfills, and if we're unlucky, are being loosed into the environment, which, because so much plastic is in the environment, we know happens all too often. What Ridwell does is take the materials that don't typically get recycled by municipal recycling enterprises, everything from styrofoam to those little red tags, to basically any plastic object or other kinds of junk that can't easily be recycled or repurposed or reused, and they find a home for it. Plastic wraps, for instance, cellophane and bags and saran wrap type materials. They have a buyer that makes permanent objects out of those. In fact, numerous companies around the world make everything from plastic picture frames to other sort of solid objects that will at least lock the plastic into a use where it's not being constantly released into the environment, or it has to be thrown away immediately, which is how so much of our plastics exist. There's several companies are making construction material or simulated wood products for outdoor yards. One company, Trex, is a big buyer of Ridwells. Plastic pouches and certain composite materials, things that our recycling systems just can't handle. They also collect other materials and outsource them to nonprofits and charitable organizations. There's one really cool program in Seattle where Ridwell collects people's used eyeglasses, and the way they work is every 2 weeks they make pickups to their subscribers. It's a subscriber-driven social impact company, and you pay $15 a month. You get 2 pickups a month, and there's certain things that you put in your Ridwell bin that they will always take, common forms of trash like wraps and plastic bags and styrofoam packing, and other problematic plastic materials that we use in quantities. And then they'll have a separate collection each week of a different sort of material that's more rare, like save up your bread bags, save up your used batteries, because nobody knows what to do with used batteries. And they have a whole list, and they email out to their customer base in advance, and then they go around and make a collection, and they connect those materials to people who will safely and really recycle it, not load it onto container ships and ship them to some country that'll take anything because their economy depends on that. It's actually handled responsibly, and they have a 97% third-party verified rate of succeeding with their materials. So they also have an excellent transparency presence on their website. They're now in 9 cities, I believe, 9 states rather, and cities all over the place. It's really a marvelous idea that grew out of a father and son project. His 7-year-old son, Brian Mesker's the founder of the company. 7-year-old son was studied learning about recycling in school and said, "What are we going to do with this old bag of batteries in the drawer, Dad?" And he had no idea what to do. So he called around and found a place that would take them. And then as he and Owen were leaving, they went to ask the neighbors if they had any old batteries, and they took them and got them recycled, and it became a weekly adventure for father and son. And the whole neighborhood joined in, and then the whole surrounding neighborhoods wanted to take part, and they generated an email list that was called Owen's List. And that eventually evolved into, at the behest of their subscribers, why don't you start charging us a little bit for this, and let's build this. Well, I sacrifice a couple lattes a week to get this stuff taken care of responsibly. This is in Seattle, where there's you're more likely to succeed with something like that. But now it's all over the place. It's in Atlanta. It's in cities where you might not think would be interested in this. So what's wrong with this picture, right? It's a great solution. Well, it's asking people to pay yet again for something more that their recycling system is supposed to already be taken care of. And it's not putting that cost onto this root cause of the problem, which is the creators of this unrecyclable plastic waste. And so it's a big ask, and most people won't do it. If they get 20% of a zip code, they are considered wildly successful. So if that's the best that we can do with this kind of solution, it's great, but 20% of the amount of volume of problematic plastic we're generating isn't enough. The solution I'm really excited about, and that I focus on in the book, is polluters pay laws. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept of extended producer responsibility laws. What you may not know is the first state in the country to finally pass one of these after years of effort was the state of Maine. And they are now in the rulemaking process and will soon be actually enforcing this law. It passed in 2022, was signed by the governor, I believe, or 2021, actually. It's a long process to get it up and running. But what this does is require material that is said to be recyclable, and that would be packaging and containers of all kinds that are made out of plastic or paper or any other material. It actually has to be recycled. Not like theoretically recyclable. It could happen, maybe it will. It has to happen, and the industry has to pay for it. Where it shifts the cost of dealing with these materials to the producers who engineer them and deploy them and then wash their hands of their fate. There's no more washing of hands in the state of Maine. If Coca-Cola wants to sell products there, every single one of its containers has to be recycled. And that is game changing. And the most important part is that the industry isn't allowed to control the process. They are a stakeholder, but they do not drive the train. The foxes are not guarding the henhouse in the way Maine has set this up. They broke the ice, and other states have followed, including California. And there's other states, New York as well, are now trying to figure out how to deploy this idea. And I'll take a second and tell you how this happened, because it shows the power of individual choice as opposed to, politicians or our tech overlords solving a problem. There's a woman in Maine, Sarah Nichols. She's a single mom. She's worked for a small nonprofit, the Natural Resources Council of Maine, for many years. She worked on this for 8 years because it just outraged her that their beautiful state was being despoiled by plastic waste in waterways, and it was being captured in the important seafood industry. It was being found in fish that's being caught in Maine, plastic waste. And she felt that we were subsidizing this waste by excusing the producers from any responsibility for plastic pollution. We were allowing them to basically have a silent subsidy, and that was unjust. And that's how she pitched it to one town council after another in the state of Maine. Just old-fashioned retail lobbying your elected representatives. And her pitch was, hey, we make our kids clean up their rooms when they make a mess. Why are we not making these people clean up their plastic waste that they are foisting on us? Why are we paying for their, they get to keep their profits. Why are we paying their costs for them? And that resonated with the Mainers. And one by one, not only were citizens saying, yeah, I'll help out with that. Local businesses, including the largest craft brewery in Maine, Allagash, said, you know what? You're right. We need to deal with this. We're doing quite nicely here, and we are adding to the problem. I'm on board. So once certainly not the entire business community, but once Sarah had significant backers in the Maine business community, it was a juggernaut, and it did take years, but her secret weapon was, she calls them her army of Marges. And I'm going to share this page from the book because, like Anne-Marie, Sarah Nichols shared her tips for how she did this, and it's really cool. Oh, I need to stop one share and share another. So a Marge, Sarah's very first volunteer in her very first environmental campaign when she lived in New Hampshire, was named Marge, and she was a powerhouse. And any kind of volunteer activity she needed to make her work on the bottle bill there succeed, it did. And forever after, she has always looked in every town where she wanted to gain traction for Polluters Pay laws. She found her Marge, and everybody needs to be a Marge is her message, And I was very charmed by that idea and the sort of hominess of the Marge name. But it's a real thing that we are not helpless, and this happened because of a community of people that came together with one person who was very persistent leading the way. This game-changing law, whose ultimate purpose isn't to find a proper home for our recyclables, but to drive a lower cost alternative, reusability. If the polluters have to pay for the plastic waste they're creating, that will create an incentive for either engineering much better materials, or, hey, that reuse we used to have back in the old days, maybe that's not so bad after all. What it's lacking now in America is that financial incentive. Once these EPRs, these polluters pay laws, come online, I'm optimistic that we will see a resurgence of the reusability that was the norm for centuries in this country. And we know how to do reusability. We had it up until the 1970s. Who knows what happened in the 1970s that changed the use of glass and reusable containers, and other kinds of reusables that we had in the past. Not just soda bottles and beer bottles, but chip containers and pretzel cans and all sorts of other things that were in reusable, recyclable. I'm trying to see if anybody's saying in the chat what happened in the 1970s. I'm going to get rid of this share. Nobody's volunteering answer. Well, what happened is the DuPont invented a soda bottle made out of plastic that did not explode. Previous attempts had been disastrous, so they couldn't market them. But finally, they solved that problem, and we've been plasticizing ourselves ever since. That really generated an explosion of plastics and the demise of a major reusability era in the country. I think I'm probably over my time now, so I'm gonna wrap it up with one observation I'd like to share. Second. I was going to play the famous crying Indian ad for you, but I don't know. Has anybody not seen that or have seen it? Okay, I won't then, but you should look it up on YouTube because it's the greatest act of greenwashing in our era. It was the moment when the idea that we were responsible for this solely as consumers took hold. That the problem, as the voiceover at the end of this public service commercial comes on, it says, people start pollution, people can stop it. And that's really been how we have been operating ever since when it comes to our disposable plastics. And it's that, like so many other things having to do with our plastics and our disposable economy was a lie. We are not creating this problem. We are stuck with this problem, and that's a very different thing. And personal choice in terms of our shopping and product choices and personal reusability is definitely part of the solution. And it can drive market decisions that companies make if we're not buying their products. But we also need to have accountability and assign the costs where they properly belong. And that's not government regulations, actually restoring genuine capitalism to the disposable economy, where right now the creators of the costs are not paying those costs. My message is support this kinds of legislation. Right now they're being aimed at containers and packaging, but the producer responsibility concept could apply to many other polluting industries as well. And now, questions, please.
Thank you. That was, first of all, just I'll applaud audibly, as I'm sure everybody else is in their corners. And I see Jackie just shared the crying Indian ad. I actually remember as a young girl, I think this is the first time I ever cried at the TV or with the TV or whatever. It was, yeah, very moving.
I joined my school recycling club because of that ad.
Oh, it was very, very moving. Thank you for that. And I just want to echo what Anne Marie was saying, and you were helping us see as well. The book is actually full of optimism, and which is why I'm reading it so quickly, because it's fun and exciting to be inspired. I have some questions, but I want to first turn it over for the time we have to anyone who wants to ask a question, either in the chat or if you want to just raise your, raise your virtual hand, or you can just unmute yourself and I can try to manage it that way as well. Okay, so while we have people thinking about their questions, I'll just ask one of mine. So I've just finished the chapter on the induction stoves, and I turned to my husband after I read it, and I said, "Okay, that's it. We've got to do this. We have gas at the moment, and I bought a little induction burner. It blew out for some reason, and so I am actually thinking of just going ahead with the whole thing. And I'm just curious as you were interviewing people, whether anyone said how difficult it is, or does anyone on this call know how difficult it is to tap into the Inflation Reduction Act subsidies for household changes like that?
It's actually it's gotten easier now, I'm told, and also the induction stove or any kind of electric stove replacing a gas stove will qualify. And I believe there's some money available to offset some of the costs of rewiring if you need that. If you already have an electric stove and you want to go with induction, you probably don't. There's some ways around in most newer houses won't need to have a lot of rewiring done. Older houses, you know, any kind of major appliance install needs to have an electrician make sure it's safe. I would recommend, I don't know what kind of little induction tabletop unit you got. There's some really great ones. And my favorite, I don't recommend products, but my favorite reviewing authority would be Wirecutter at the New York Times. And I can tell you their recommendations for them will not make you unhappy. So.
Okay, thank
And
you
the
for
cheap.
that. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll start with that, but I'm ready. And I've now started cooking literally today on the back burner instead of the front because of your book.
Yes, good.
Yes,
Just-
thank you.
I switched, Stephanie, last year. So I went through the whole thing and I wrote a blog post about it. So
Yes, and you inspired me to get my very first separate induction appliance. So I just need to get a better one, I think, but
okay.
the whole
Well,
switch.
For those who present who don't know why this would be in a conversation about waste, gas stoves are incredibly wasteful. All gas appliances are. 70% of the energy that a gas stove consumes does not cook the food. It cooks the room, it heats up the stove. It's a highly inefficient way to cook. Induction stoves generate no heat on their own. They use magnets. The only limitation is you have to have a steel or iron alloy of some kind. It can even be clad, something clad to use it. A magnet has to be attracted to it. But that the same way your wireless phone charger generates heat, an induction stovetop does the same thing, but on purpose rather than a byproduct as it is with your phone. And it's cooking with magnets. They displayed this technology in the 1930s World Fair in Chicago. They called it cool cooking. Good. And they demonstrated it by putting a teapot on top of a book, which was on top of the induction cooker, and the water boiled, and the guy sat there and drank his tea and read the book. It was unharmed. And people were going, whoa, how did that happen? It was magic. It's only now being commercialized in ways that are attractive and affordable. Professional chefs are actually kind of loving it because it lowers their costs and you can cook almost twice as fast certain foods. Water boils twice as fast as it does over a gas burner. And it's 90% efficient. So you're not wasting all the energy. You need less cooling and ventilation because spatters don't cook on the stovetop because the stovetop's not hot. So you clean it up with a sponge instead of scrubbing. It's perfect for a commercial kitchen and ultimately healthier for a home environment. Gas stove homes have a 42% higher risk of respiratory ailments and childhood asthma in their homes than stoves that don't cook with gas. That alone is driving people. My cousin Dorothy, who lives in New York and had a gas stove in her apartment and has been struggling with long COVID, got in touch with me. He said, I read that. I didn't know about it. I went to online and got one from IKEA. And after 2 weeks, my respiratory problems aren't gone, but I'm feeling better. I'm not getting so short of breath all the time. I haven't been using my gas stove. That's completely anecdotal, but there's also science to back up that actually is something that can help people and help kids and help vulnerable adults if you get rid of your gas stove.
Yeah, that chapter was very convincing. And I love the fact that you told the story of the chef who started it, because I think so much of our preconceptions about cooking with gas and that being the best way are, that's what the chefs do. And so if you've got chefs now regaling, talking about how great induction is, then hopefully that moves the needle a little faster. Okay, I just want to check in. I'm looking at the chat. We've got some comments. Dominique said, one thing I've been doing is turning off my gas stove 75% of the way done and let the residual heat in the pan or pot finish the cooking process. Oh, that's cool. So other questions, just maybe take yourself off mute and go ahead.
I do have a question. It's kind of like a hardball, so I kind of feel hesitant. If it's okay, I want to ask you your opinion about EPR and some of the EPR have had in some states, earlier states that established it, had polluters to be in control, especially in the PRO, like a producer responsibility organization, part of it. And I'm really concerned, and I'm not a big fan of bureaucracy myself. Like every time there's a bureaucracy, any big organization, they always have some kind of problems, and they're very slow to adapt to change and innovations. Those things always come from small grassroots organizations, I think, or like very small businesses. And EPR seems to me like way too big. It's very bureaucratic. I thought about it, and then I wondered, what are the historical instances of successful bureaucracies? And then I thought, okay, Civilian Conservation Corps, that was great. But then it lasted only 10 years before the, World War kicked in. So that was very short. EPR, we are glad it's there, but they are always, they have a lot of problems. And Social Security Administration, we love that it's there, but we always, they're always under the threat. They always have so many problems. So I do not know, because of the recycling debacles of the entire plastic, I kind of wonder about this really tremendous bureaucracy it's going to create, and how the the polluters going to be involved. And some of them said that they're going to keep the polluters out, and yet but they're going to keep use the the state's environmental, like New York have a Department of Environmental Conservation, and the other places have different versions of it. And they are understaffed, and they say that they're going to pump in the money, they make the corporation pay. But then they're gonna, I think devils are in the details. And I feel the DEC in New York will look into hiring private contractors, some of the big waste management companies. And I just kind of wonder how it's going to go. So I just kind of have some doubts. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just kind of watching it from the side, kind of skeptically. I don't want to put the wet blanket to people who are really excited about it. In principle, it's a very good idea to hold corporations accountable. Does it work as a giant organizational,
Well, yeah, I can understand skepticism. Part of it is that we have the United States is uniquely enthralled by the idea that markets can solve everything and just get out of their way. Well, guess what? Markets got us into this mess. The founders of the founders of their country were this country were not perfect, but they did not think that laissez-faire economics was the answer to everything. That there is a place for public oversight and accountability. That is what these polluters pay laws are about. Basically, the big brands have been saying for years that, all this stuff is recyclable, and it's not. It's a lie. It's never happened. It's never come close to even half being true. And the alternative isn't to let them keep trying to do what clearly they can't do. They have to be held accountable. And that is the purpose of government, isn't just to hold criminals in the street accountable, but to hold those who are damaging the public good accountable. So how do you do that? You're right, the devil is in the details. But Maine has come up with a pretty good model. They're not telling them how to do it. Just, hey, you want to sell this crap here? It has to actually get recycled, and you've got to be responsible for it. We don't care how you do it, but if you don't do it, we're going to charge you a whole lot of money as a penalty for not doing it. I think that's a good system, and not having the industry be in charge of policing that is also a good idea, which Maine has successfully done. Other states that are deciding to let industry govern this process, I think they're making a mistake, and they're not going to get the results that we need. So to answer your question, the devil is in the details, but as a concept, it's not only a good idea, it's a return to common sense that has just been completely missing from the conversation about what to do about plastic pollution, as it is what to do about climate change, frankly, because the industry that is most responsible for it has also been excused from financial liability. So we have to find a way to balance those scales. And this is a good start.
Yes, okay, thank you. I totally agree about public oversight. I'm so for it. So thank you. I like the principle. I just was wondering about implementation. I think, yeah, I just wonder, like, and what do I know? I don't know anything. So I'm just looking and wondering. So
no, it's good. These are the kinds of questions it's good to be asking, because for a long time we haven't been having this conversation at all. And that's what's really the breakthrough and the sea change, is that not a majority yet, but getting close to a majority of states are interested in pursuing this, and that will have power.
It'll be really interesting to see how it rolls out in Maine, as you said, in the next year or so, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll all keep an eye on that.
Kate had a question, I think. I saw your hand up.
Oh, yes, please go ahead, Kate.
Well, I just wanted to ask you more about Ridwell. I live on the East Coast, so I don't have access, but and it sounds just so good to be true. And just as most of us kind of remember from TerraCycle, when it sounds too good to be true, it often is. Were you able to visit them and see that
Yes,
they're doing everything that they say they're doing? And
yes.
And even like the plastic film. So many of us have tried to recycle our plastic film, and when you, at least in the New York area, when you do the research and follow the stream, it goes right to landfill, because we're not near any place that's actually recycling it. I mean, and out west, are there enough Trek locations that they can?
I've actually seen the trucks at the loading dock of the Ridwell warehouse, so they want the material, and there's other businesses like that. It's mind-boggling that our municipal systems can't make that connection, but they know.
Well, that's really good to hear.
But yes, and they really do have an excellent. I mean, our waste stream is such a black hole, and Ridwell is kind of the exception to that. You can go on their website and then follow the chain and call up the end user, their customer, basically, and investigate them. It's transparent.
Well, that's great, but the only drawback is that it's expensive, so it's really only for wealthy people.
Well, $15 a month. I mean, that's what subscribers pay, and that is a lot to ask for a lot of people, and also it's unfair to have to pay yet more for it.
Right.
On the other hand, those who are motivated enough to make that sacrifice, feel really good about it. I was up there for Earth Day, and the Ridwell community turned out in force, and they are passionate about this. They consider themselves a community, not not
Well, I think most of us would be. Most of us would participate if we could. I mean, this is I would be one of them too, but it just doesn't seem scalable, and it shouldn't have to be, as you're saying.
Well, the founder, Ryan, said the best thing he said to me is, well, I live for the day when I am obsolete and we don't need to do this. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. But that's his idea of success. So it's really cool.
It is really cool. And it's definitely great to hear you say and read what you said about the transparency, which sounds like they are a lot more transparent than TerraCycle, which seemed like a solution, I think, for many of us, and it's just not clear then what happens and what we're actually paying for. So Okay, if there's one more quick question, we could take one more question, but if there's,
Scott Bircher?
I could just make a real quick question. I don't know what
Yes.
TerraCycle is, but there's an organization called CRDC that just recently relocated, apparently their first facility near where I live in York, Pennsylvania. And what they say is introducing Resin 8, a breakthrough concrete additive made from mixed plastic waste. And so they are accepting large amounts of generalized, non-specific plastic waste at various locations around York, Pennsylvania. I wondered, is that something we as consumers should support? Do you know anything about this process?
I'm not familiar with that particular company, so would recommend investigating. I'm a journalist, so I like to know what's what. I go interview a doctor before I talk. Sometimes I do, that's my approach. But there are companies that are doing something similar where they're taking local plastic waste and making there's actually like mobile manufacturing to make a replacement for cinder blocks, for concrete blocks, which is kind of amazing. Because if you could use the local waste stream to create construction materials on site, you are eliminating a huge part of the carbon footprint of construction, at least for that concrete blocks, which are a mainstay for a lot of buildings. So if it's something like that, it's well worth checking out because the potential.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
There's some other folks in the chat who have mentioned some other ideas along the same lines of construction materials. Okay, thank you. I would like to just, on behalf of all of us, say thank you, Ed, so much for joining us for the discussion. Thank you so much for writing this book and shedding light on not just the problem, which is huge, obviously, but also the solutions, which are exciting to read about. So thank you for everything you do. And you are very welcome to join us for the last 20 minutes breakout sessions. No pressure, but if you stay, you'll be thrown into a group. So thank you again, and thank you, Anne Marie, for inviting Ed to join us this evening.
I'm gonna put
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for coming. That was great.
It was a pleasure to talk with such an engaged and obviously well-informed group such as yours, and you're all over the place. It's actually kind of a thrill. I just put my website address in there, and that has more information about the book and ways to contact me if you should want to do that. And I certainly would like to learn more about what you guys are doing, and I'm going to find out. So
great. Thank you. Thank you again.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. We are very, very grateful that you joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will have Amy do her magic and put us in groups, and we will share what we have to share. So Amy, go ahead and do your thing.
So we're gonna, we want to remind everybody that, thank you, Shara, for the heads up. The June 16th is a World Refill Day. So, and then also upcoming is July is, everybody knows, Plastic-Free July. So maybe what you are planning to do in your life or with your group, and also, also share the tips. Each group should have one person who has started the program. So, ask about it and how it goes, and, share the troubleshooting ideas or joys and struggles and things like that. So, yes, thank you. Amy, please go ahead.
Sorry, having a bit of difficulty, but assigning the rooms now.
It's okay.
And we'll come back for just a couple minutes at the end.
Yes.
Sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulties. My
Don't
computer is
worry,
being
don't
weird.
worry. We'll all stand by.
Okay, 13 unassigned rooms. One sec.
Amy, I actually realized I was logged on in 2 different places. So actually, can you just put me here in room 2, share or tell in room 2? I'm already there for whatever. I'm going to hang out with my phone, but yeah.
Cool. Okay, perfect.
Thanks. Sorry.
Um,
And I'm thinking I need to get involved.
Oh,
Recording in progress.
should we, wait, sorry.
Don't worry.
Hey, I think I was alone.
Hi everyone. I believe these are all of like the unassigned room people, but we've created a bit of a group. So yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties, but I guess this can be a breakout room of its own. So I'm Amy. I'm with Harlem Reduces in New York, and I do some New York City Reduces work. Yeah, does anybody else want to introduce themselves?
Sure. My name's Brandy Deason, and I work on out of Houston, Texas. Climate Justice Coordinator for Plastic Pollution at Airlines Houston. Nice to talk to you all.
Oh, cool, great. Nice to talk to you.
Very cool. Hi, I'm Oля. I am in Austin, Texas, actually. I recently just talked to Yayoi about this program because I volunteer for Plastic Reduction Project, and we formed like a coalition with a couple different nonprofits and trying to eliminate waste in Austin. And yeah, super excited joining. And I think I am a bit late because I thought it's on the central time, but I'm glad I could just meet you.
That's so cool. Jin, are you here with us right now? It might have gone out, I guess. But I guess if you guys want to share, I guess what you're working on right now. I don't know if there's a prompt. I was kind of focused on creating the rooms, but I don't know if Yayo